If you go over on Google, is she lying about her age? It currently says August 4th, 1981, that she is 41.
Claims that she was working for Humphrey Yogurt, age 13. She also...
My legal name is Meghan, Duchess of Sussex.
What's in a name? Well, a lot.
Digging away to find out what they don't want us to know. I wrote 4 years ago a book about Prince Charles.
As part of the defamation suit against her that's happening, this is false. Here you can see that Samantha is 58 years old.
For years, a quiet question has moved through royal gossip circles. Meghan Markle's real age. It's something she has never publicly addressed in a direct way, and something her lawyers have reportedly worked to keep out of the spotlight. Now, investigative biographer Tom Bower is bringing the issue into the open. At first, it may seem like an odd topic. People are often vague about their age, but Bower suggests this is about more than that. He points to alleged inconsistencies involving magazine archives, school and university records, family stories, and other details that, in his view, do not fully line up. Bower is said to be preparing a new edition of his book, and reports suggest Meghan's legal team is deeply concerned. This time, the focus is allegedly on official documents and records that would be much harder to dismiss or explain away. And the more closely the story is examined, the more questions it appears to raise. Before looking at the claims themselves, it is important to understand who Tom Bower is. He is not simply a tabloid writer or royal commentator chasing attention. He is widely known in Britain as a serious investigative biographer, and as someone many powerful people would rather avoid.
Tom Bower, best known for his unauthorized biographies, including the recently re-released publication about one of...
The book has only just been published or about to be published, and Harry and Meghan have already slated it.
A spokesman said it had...
He has spent many years writing tough, deeply researched books about some of the most debated figures of modern times, including Robert Maxwell, Muhammad Ali, Simon Cowell, and Prince Charles. Every book is built on long interviews, documents, and checked sources. And each one has had a real impact that the people involved could not simply ignore. When Tom Bower examines someone's story, he does not rely on guesswork. He investigates, then keeps investigating. What makes him different from so much of the noise around the royal family is clear. He does not rely on gossip. He does not publish claims he cannot support. His sources are not nameless voices passing along rumors. They are people with real identities, real roles, and direct experience. They were in the room at the events and close enough to see what happened for themselves. That is why his books do more than grab attention. They leave a lasting record. In 2022, he released Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors. The book was blunt and highly critical. It described Meghan as strategic and determined, someone ready to do whatever it took to move forward and protect her position. It explored her years in Hollywood, her path into royal life, and the way she was said to deal with people who stood in her way. The book sparked major controversy as soon as it was published. Meghan's legal team responded quickly with objections, threats, and calls for corrections. But the book remained in place because the reporting behind it held up. Bower was able to support what he wrote, and that made it very hard to shut down. But writers like Bower do not stop once a book is released. They keep digging. They keep speaking to sources.
Bower uses them to devastating effect. He allows the words of J.R. Moehringer and Harry.
Meghan Markle has just released another podcast in which she talks about leaving the show where she got her first big break.
Sometimes the most damaging material appears after a book is already out. That seems to be where things stand now. Bower is reportedly preparing an updated edition, and people close to the matter say Meghan's lawyers are alarmed. Not over gossip, opinion columns, or online chatter, but over what he is said to have found in official records, archive material, and accounts from people directly involved. What makes this different from earlier controversies is simple. In the past, critics focused on Meghan's actions, intentions, honesty, and treatment of palace staff. This time, the issue is not personality. It is evidence, hard facts that can be checked, records that either match her public story or do not, and according to Bower's findings, they do not. A public image can be managed. A witness can be challenged. A witness can be pushed aside with a carefully written statement. But documents are harder to dismiss. A magazine archive cannot be argued away. A university record cannot be explained out of existence. If a birth year appears in official material, it does not simply vanish because it causes a problem. The paper trail is there, and it seems to point towards something Meghan would rather people not examine. The version Meghan has presented is clear, that she was born on August 4, 1981, and is 44 years old. A California-born actress who rose from minor television parts to life inside the royal world.
Theory that many people out there have been speculating on, that Meghan Markle has lied about her age.
And chose her job as Princess of the United Kingdom, the same as what Kate listed for her occupation.
It sounds like a polished and uplifting story, with no sign that anything is out of place. But when Tom Bauer examined that timeline, he concluded it did not add up. According to his research, Meghan may not be 44 at all. He believes the evidence points to an age somewhere between 48 and 52. That is not a small mismatch or a simple paperwork issue. It would mean a completely different timeline. A difference that large could affect how people view her career, her past relationships, her public identity, and possibly even legal questions tied to her history. One of the first major pieces of evidence comes from a source most people have likely never seen. In the March 1997 issue of 17 magazine, on page 90, Meghan Markle appears in a feature that lists her as 21 years old. Bauer reportedly did not treat this lightly. He went to physical archives, checked the publication date, and confirmed the source for himself. In his account, the record is genuine, and so is the date. That creates a serious problem. If Meghan was really born in August 1981, she would have been only 15 or possibly 16 in March 1997, not 21. That is not a small mix-up. It is a 6-year difference printed in a national magazine. So either 17 made a very unusual error about the age of a little-known young woman, or the age connected to Meghan at the time was not the one the public hears today. And according to Bauer, that is only the beginning.
And that she was 21 years old at the time of publication. That would make her birth year at around 9.
Bauer also found that Meghan's IMDb page, the profile used in the acting industry, originally gave her birth year as 1977 rather than 1981. In Hollywood, age matters a lot. It affects which roles you can go for, which auditions you get seen for, and how long the industry keeps certain opportunities open to you. On paper, being younger can mean more chances and a longer career path and a business known for being harsh about age. At some point, that birth year was quietly changed. There was no public explanation, no clear correction, just a silent update that seemed designed to pass without notice. But Bauer noticed, and he says he has screenshots to show it. What makes this harder to dismiss is that it is not based on just one possible mistake. It is not one odd article or one unhappy source making claims. Instead, there is a national magazine listing one age, a professional entertainment database showing a different birth year, and a public life story presenting another version. 3 separate records, 3 different numbers, and none of them match. For most people, that would already be enough to raise questions. But for someone who later became part of the British royal family, with a life now tied to public scrutiny and official records, it becomes much more serious. And according to Bauer, the more he investigated, the more these contradictions kept showing up.
You would think that she would remember how old exactly she was. And we're going to see throughout.
The magazine entry and the IMDb listing were only the start. The stronger evidence, according to Bauer, was found in a university alumni directory, and it was much harder to brush aside. On the surface, Meghan's college record seems straightforward. She attended Northwestern University, graduated in 2003 with degrees in theater and international studies, and, based on the public birth year of 1981, would have been 22 at the time. If that date is correct, the timeline looks normal and gives no obvious reason for doubt. But Bauer did not stop at the graduation record. He went deeper. He reviewed alumni directories, contacted people who were at Northwestern with Meghan, studied group photos from those years, identified former classmates, and began reaching out to them. What he found, he says, does not fit neatly with the official story. The people who studied alongside Meghan are not mostly in their early 40s today. According to Bauer, most of them are now in their 50s. Not just 1 or 2, but the majority.
And finding prom dresses for teenagers in need.
I think Meg was always a little bit more adult than the rest of us. I think
Bauer contacted several of Meghan's former classmates and asked a simple question: when were you born? He says the answers were the same again and again from different people he spoke to. Early 1970s every time. On its own, that might still be explainable. Maybe she was simply closer to older students. Maybe her social circle just happened to be different. Unusual, yes, but still possible. But one photo makes that explanation much harder to accept. It is a well-known Northwestern salsa club picture showing Meghan in the back row, smiling, with around a dozen other students. At first glance, it looks like a normal college group photo. But Bauer tracked down several of the people in that image and asked them the same question. According to him, every one of them said they were born in the early 1970s. These were not older professors or graduate students from some separate program. They were her peers, the people she spent time with during her university years, studying, socializing, and building friendships with. If Meghan really was 18 or 19 when she began at Northwestern, then she was spending most of her time with people nearly 10 years older than she was. That is not what most people would call a typical college experience. It starts to look like a pattern, and patterns, Bauer knows, usually point to something. One former classmate reportedly spoke to him anonymously and made a striking claim. According to that source, people around Meghan knew she was older than she suggested. It was not something openly discussed all the time. It was simply understood and then left alone. Back then, it did not seem important. No one imagined they were looking at someone who would later become the Duchess of Sussex. But now it matters, because if the people sitting beside her in class, sharing the same campus, and appearing with her in the same photos were all born in the early 1970s, and Meghan moved through those years as one of them, rather than as a much younger student, then the timeline becomes much harder to ignore.
Opens the door and welcomes you to Kappa, and she opened the door, and it's like a ray of light shining from above.
Then the birth year she has publicly repeated for years starts to look less like a fact and more like a carefully protected version of events. That leads to the obvious next question. If she was not fully truthful about her age during her university years, what else from that period may not have been fully explained? As Bauer looked deeper into her past, he says the inconsistencies only grew, especially when he turned to the people who had known her the longest. If you want to check the truth about someone's early life, you go to the people who were there from the start, before the cameras, before the royal title, and before the public image was carefully shaped. You go to family. Bauer did exactly that, and what he found did not clear things up. If anything, it made the story even more complicated. He began with Thomas Markle. Meghan's father has given many interviews since her marriage to Prince Harry. He has spoken openly about her childhood, her personality, her goals, and the way she has treated the people who raised her. He is clearly not someone who keeps quiet. Time and again, he has shown he is willing to say in public what most fathers would never share. So when Tom Bauer met with him during his research and asked a very simple question, "What year was Meghan born?" the reaction stood out. Thomas paused. Then he gave an unusual answer. Not August 4 of 1981. Not a quick, confident reply, the kind most parents would give without thinking when asked their own child's date of birth.
4th, 40 years ago, Meghan was born, and she was born as...
What he said instead is what has stayed with everyone who has heard it since. You should check the records yourself. That is not a normal response. It is not how a father usually answers a basic question about his daughter's birthday. A birth year is not complicated. It is not something most parents stop to think through. They usually know it right away, without any doubt. That is why Bauer paid close attention to the moment. Thomas Markle has shown many times that he is willing to speak openly and bluntly about almost everything. Yet when this one question came up, he suddenly seemed careful and uncertain. To Bauer, that was hard to overlook. Then there is Samantha Markle, Meghan's half-sister, who was born in 1964. If Meghan was really born in 1981, that would mean there is a 17-year gap between them. Samantha would already have been a teenager when Meghan was born. They would have grown up in very different stages of life, with little real childhood overlap. But Samantha told Bauer that was not how she remembered it. She said the age gap was much smaller than Meghan has suggested. She said they were closer in age while growing up than most people think. And she said the story people are given now does not match her own memory of their relationship. Think about what that means. If Meghan was truly born in 1981, then that 17-year gap is not open to debate. It is fixed.
My little sister, though, I said, if there was any descriptive qualifier.
There is no room to bend that math. But if Meghan was actually born sometime between 1973 and 1975, the age gap drops to about 9 to 11 years. That would make the sisters much closer in age, close enough to have truly grown up together, shared more of the same childhood, and made Samantha's version of events easier to understand. Bauer also raises another point. Carefully but plainly, age matters when it comes to biology. If Meghan is much older than she says, then the discussion around her pregnancies looks very different. The timing of having 2 children, the talk about fertility problems, and the quiet claims from relatives about a hysterectomy all take on a different meaning if she was nearing 50 rather than 44. That makes 2 family members and 2 separate accounts that do not fit neatly with the public story. Neither one is easy to wave away. Then there is Hollywood, one of the most age-focused industries in the world. It has always worked that way. Age affects everything: the roles you can pursue, the auditions you get into, and which casting directors are willing to give you a chance. It is harsh, unfair, and well understood by everyone in the business. That is why Meghan's acting career timeline becomes such an important part of this story. On the surface, it seems simple enough. She graduated from Northwestern in 2003, moved to Los Angeles, began auditioning, and spent years working through small roles, background parts, and commercials before finally landing something bigger.
I recently visited Northwestern. She's a graduate there, that's just north of Chicago. They said, we have a lot of famous alums.
It fits the familiar story of an actress trying to make it, easy to understand, motivating, and not unusual on the surface. But when Bauer studied the details of that career path, he believed parts of it did not add up. Take her role on Deal or No Deal in 2006. She appeared as one of the briefcase models, standing on stage as part of the show's polished, glamorous lineup. If her birth year really is 1981, then she would have been 25 at the time, which fits that kind of role without raising any questions. But if she was actually born in 1975, she would have been 31. And in Hollywood, that matters. Women in their early 30s are not usually chosen for roles built around a younger image in that type of show. Casting for programs like that tends to follow narrow age expectations, and 31 is often beyond the range they are looking for. So, if she was older, Bauer's view is that her records may have presented her differently than her true age. Then he widened the lens and looked at the larger pattern of her early career throughout the early 2000s.
Case model on the game show Deal or No Deal. 16 years later, the Duchess of Sussex is now...
Meghan kept auditioning nonstop. She picked up small TV spots, one-off appearances, and parts that did little for her career. That kind of grind is normal in Hollywood. The problem, Bauer argues, is the age factor. Casting directors often work within tight age limits. Once an unknown actress moves past 30, the roles usually start to change. Instead of young leads, she is more likely to be seen for mothers, older sisters, or supporting parts. The chance to break through as the fresh young star does not just get smaller, it nearly disappears. Meghan's career path, in Bauer's view, looks like that of someone who knew that pressure well and was doing everything she could to stay ahead of it. Then came Suits. She won the role of Rachel Zane in 2011, the big break she had been chasing for years. But the timing matters. If she was born in 1981, she would have been 30 when she got the part. Already near the upper end of the age range that role would usually attract. For a character like Rachel Zane, producers normally look for an actress in her mid to late 20s. Someone who comes across as bright, driven, and still at the start of her professional life. At 30, Meghan would have just made it in. But if she was actually born in 1975, she would have been 36 when Suits started filming. And that changes everything. A 36-year-old actress with no major credits and little industry status would not normally be cast in a role like Rachel Zane. That is simply not how the business usually works. Unless, as Bauer suggests, her official age told a very different story. According to his view, this pattern shows up across her whole career, in every major step and every important role she managed to secure.
She's really savvy. She has this encyclopedic knowledge of the law, and she is sort of the go-to girl for...
Every opportunity that stayed open just long enough for her to step through seems to fit more easily with a carefully managed age than with the birth year she has publicly claimed. And the more closely the timeline is examined, the harder it is to dismiss that as chance. But Bauer says her career was only part of the story. According to him, the most striking evidence was not in a casting file or TV archive. It appeared on an official government document, and palace insiders reportedly said they had never seen anything like it. In every major investigation, there comes a point when the evidence moves beyond rumor and contradiction and becomes something official. For Bauer, that point came when he looked closely at Archie's birth certificate. When Archie was born in May 2019, the certificate was first filed in the usual way. The mother's name was listed as Rachel Meghan Markle. It looked standard, formal, and completely normal. Nothing about it seemed unusual at the time. But a few weeks later, the document was quietly changed. Her first and middle names were removed. Where it had originally said Rachel Meghan Markle, it was updated to read only Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. No first name, no middle name, just the title.
Shows the mother as Rachel Meghan Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex and shows her job as Prince.
He dug into it in detail, and what he uncovered stood out. Changing a royal birth certificate like this is almost unheard of. People close to the palace said they could not remember it happening before. These certificates are official, lasting records. They are not quietly changed later unless there is a clear and intentional reason. The change itself was unusual. The lack of any public statement made it even more notable. So why was it done? Bauer gives a blunt answer. Meghan does not want a clear paper trail. When a full legal name appears on an official record, it can lead to other documents such as school records, passport forms, earlier legal papers, marriage records, and contracts. Someone with access and persistence can follow that path and see where it goes. By removing her full name from Archie's birth certificate, that path becomes much harder to track, and her past becomes more difficult to trace.
My legal name is Meghan, Duchess of Sussex.
What's in a name? Well, a lot.
Bauer says this is not the kind of move people make when they have nothing to conceal. But in his view, the issue goes far beyond image. While writing his book, he spoke with legal experts who gave a serious warning. If Meghan gave false details on official records, and especially on a marriage certificate, that could move into fraud. Under British law, that could lead not just to divorce, but to annulment, meaning the marriage would be treated as if it was never legally valid in the first place. The fallout would be huge. It could raise questions about the children's titles, complicate the line of succession, and weaken the legal basis of their royal position from the bottom up. In Bauer's view, this is not just a hypothetical risk. It is a problem that could shake the whole structure once it begins. He also argued that the risk does not end with the royal family. If Meghan gave false personal details to Netflix, Spotify, or other business partners, those deals could face legal trouble too. Incorrect information in a professional contract can make that contract invalid. Lawsuits could follow, and income built over years could vanish very quickly. Bauer believes that is why the silence has been so total. At this stage, he sees the issue as more than reputation. The pressure is legal, financial, and personal at the same time. When problems are closing in from every side, staying silent can start to look less like grace and more like damage control. When a major accusation is made against a public figure, the usual response is clear. You get out in front of it. You issue a statement. You show documents. If needed, you hold a press conference. You lay out the facts in a direct and confident way. The goal is to make the truth look bigger than the accusation. Meghan did not do that. When Bauer's claims became public, her legal team reacted quickly, but instead of offering proof, they targeted the publisher with threats and demands for retractions.
About her, the generosity is only about if I express philanthropic views.
They dismissed the H claims as unfounded. They called them defamatory. They came out aggressively, seeming to hope that strong legal pressure would make the issue disappear. But that approach had a major weakness. Bauer says he had solid proof, printed magazine archives, university records, captures of the original IMDb page, and witness statements from people prepared to speak on the record. Legal threats may intimidate a tabloid with weak sourcing, but they do not erase a documented trail. The publisher did not back down. The book remained in place. Once it was clear the legal strategy was failing, Meghan chose a different path. Bauer says that choice said more than any public statement could have. She said nothing at all. There was no public reply, no birth certificate released to settle the issue, and no carefully prepared statement from her team. There was only silence, lasting for weeks and then months, while the questions kept spreading and speculation kept growing. Bauer's view is simple. If your record is clear, you show the proof. You do not allow damaging rumors to keep building when one document could shut them down immediately. In his view, the fact that no document has appeared is not just suspicious. It suggests that releasing a birth certificate in a dispute over her birth year might create even bigger problems than it solves.
Away a dramatic occurrence. The outlet explains that his mother's name now reads Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex.
Bauer also touched on rumors he neither confirmed nor fully rejected. For years, there have been claims that Meghan may have an older daughter from a past relationship, a daughter who would now reportedly be in her 30s if those claims were true. He looked closely at parts of Meghan's timeline that remain unclear, including periods where public records are limited and details are vague. His point was careful but clear. If her birth year were earlier than 1981, some of those timeline gaps might appear less unusual. That would place her in her early 20s in the mid-1990s, an age when she could have had a child before moving into the next stage of her life. Still, Bauer does not present hard proof for that claim. And without proof, it remains speculation. His larger argument is that if someone may have been inaccurate about something as basic as their age, people will naturally start asking what else has not been fully explained. In the end, Bauer does not flatly state what Meghan's real age is. He lays out the material he found and leaves readers to draw their own conclusions.
1981, she is 42 years old today. Today is her birthday, and we can officially now say that
Bauer's main point is clear. For years, Meghan Markle has presented an image of herself that, in his view, does not fully line up with the record. He argues that it is not only her age, but also her education, family background, past relationships, and even her reasons for marrying Harry that have been carefully managed to fit a story she wants people to believe. But a public image can only go so far. Records stay on file. Archives remain. And the people who knew her before all of this, classmates, relatives, co-workers, still remember what they saw and heard. That is why the doubts keep growing. The questions have not gone away, and until Meghan produces something solid enough to settle them, Bauer's evidence remains the strongest case being heard. Here is the picture he lays out. A 1997 magazine listed her as 21 when she should have been 15. Her original IMDb profile showed a birth year that does not match the one she has publicly used. Her university peers were mostly born in the early 1970s. Her father hesitated when asked a basic question about her birth year. Her half-sister says their age difference does not match the official version. Her son's birth certificate was quietly changed in a way palace sources said they had never seen before. And through all of it, every inconsistency, every record, every question, Meghan has said nothing. No statement, no birth certificate, no explanation. Bauer has built his career on exposing the distance between public image and private reality. He's taken on some of the most powerful people in the world, and his work has held up because he does not publish without evidence. The fact that his claims about Meghan are still out there, still being discussed, and still unanswered says a lot. So the question remains, is Meghan really 44? Or is the real answer sitting in some file she does not want opened? Bauer's material does not give a final answer, but it raises a question that is getting harder to ignore. And until clear proof is produced, that question is not going away. If you want to keep following this story, like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There is more to come.